I was thinking about an argument that my friend had tried to make that was really out there, and yet I couldn't quite seem to refute it in a way that satisfied me. The idea was that the idea of 1 plus 1 equaling 2 is a social construct. He basically said, well, the construction of numbers that society agrees upon, that when we say 1, we mean a singular thing, is simply something we invented, like sports or the value of money, which I suppose makes sense, but it still feels incorrect. And I was determined not to lose this argument. Of course, 1 plus 1 has to equal 2. Whatever we decide to call the number doesn't make it any less true, right? As of right now, we have not resolved the argument. The point is, we like to argue and debate about a lot of different things, and we do it a lot. We'll argue about who should win NFL Most Valuable Player. Are the Star Wars prequels actually good? Should people be allowed to own guns? Is water wet? And more than we like to argue, we like to win our arguments. But I'm here to argue that sometimes we want to win our arguments a little too much, that we can adopt what I'll call a win only mentality, where the feeling of vindication of having crushed your opposition in debate is the ultimate and only goal. That win only mentality can cause us to stray from the path of what makes debate so worthwhile. Debating makes us grow as people, and we grow together. And if we're going to have if we're going to have a more functioning societal discourse that works towards achieving something, we have to accept that winning shouldn't be the ultimate goal. Now, I am no stranger to arguing. I take part in an activity called Model United Nations, where participants represent countries and try to persuade the group of countries called a committee to pursue policies that are favorable to each of their countries. And sort of the ultimate goal of the group is to create a solution, to create a resolution that solves a world issue like nuclear disarmament or climate change. As you can imagine, the activity can get pretty competitive, and a lot of people try really, really hard to get what they want in committee, with well thought out speeches and really clever negotiating tactics. But for such a competitive activity, I am constantly reminded of why we debate. It's not always about grand ideas that might save the world, even although sometimes it is. At a more basic level, we debate to reach a decision. We debate to win over undecided people. We debate just for the fun of it. But each of these reasons for debating shares something in common. We want to create something new, to end our arguing better off in some way than we began. And I am arguing that the sole pursuit of winning can be counterproductive to reaching that goal. Now, I want to be very clear here that, of course, the mere act of trying to win an argument is not a bad thing. That doesn't make any sense. If nobody tries to win, then you don't have a debate. But it's the framing of debate as a competition with winning and, by extension, losing that has issues. Firstly, it leads to closed mindedness and stubbornness. Second, the substance of the debate can get really repetitive and unproductive. And third, it causes people to think of their fellow debaters as their enemies. To begin, when we're stuck in a win only mindset, we lose the ability to listen and to consider the bigger picture. And it makes sense. When I play sports, where winning is literally the goal, I'm not going to purposefully let my opponents score on me in the interest of mutual cooperation. But when we argue, that's exactly what we need more of. While I'm on the topic, I'll give a sports example. Sports culture is full of debate. Who is going to win the title, who is the best player, who is overrated, who is underrated, who gets paid too much, who gets paid too little. Sometimes it seems that sports fans like to debate about the sport more than they like to play or watch the sport. So I know there's enough of you watching who do follow sports, and I ask you, how often do you see sports fans change their opinions? For a more specific example, how often do you see a Michael Jordan fan change their opinion that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time? It's not often, that's for sure. If you think about it this way, Sports fans have built their sport fan identities based on the success of their sports beliefs, their sports opinions, what teams and players they root for. They value winning so much that backing down in their arguments by default becomes losing. The win only mentalities turn open mindedness into a loser trait. Now, you're probably thinking that, sure, I believe that people like to win sports arguments, but who cares? It doesn't matter. But the thing is, we take this win only mentality that's almost synonymous with an athlete's mentality. You know, the whole winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And we apply it to other debates. It's the same type of thinking we exhibit in debates that do matter, when the difference between open mindedness and closed mindedness is measured in thousands of dollars, in promotions, hirings, and firings, in breakups, and in lives. So if we want better discourse, we have to lose the sports mentality that winning is everything. Now, I, like everybody else, am a fallible person representing fallible ideas, ideas that can be wrong. So when I debate in a committee room about nuclear weapons, I feel the need to win. But when I'm challenged, I have made it my goal to overcome the need to double down, the need to win. Because if it were real, my insistence on winning would have consequences. And this is not just for the Model UN conference room. This applies to other debates. You ever see in real life or on TV a relationship, a romantic relationship where one person just needs to win. They just need to win every argument. Treating arguing like a competition leads to closed-mindedness, and closed-mindedness usually doesn't make for a healthy relationship. So I want to return to basketball culture for my second point, that a win-only mentality can lead to unproductive debate. Now, in an ideal world, the pursuit of winning a debate would lead to more creative arguments that really challenge everybody involved to think critically. And that happens sometimes. But what happens equally, if not more often, is that people dig their heels in and repeat the same, often condensed arguments. So, with the basketball example, as I scroll my social media feed to read basketball opinions, who is the greatest player of all time? I see the flawless finals record argument everywhere. The argument is in support for Michael Jordan for greatest player of all time. He won 6 championships out of the 6 finals he made, while his perceived competition, LeBron James, made 10 finals and lost 6 of them. Basically, the argument goes, Michael Jordan never loses when it matters most. The details of the argument aren't what's important here. It's just the amount of times I've seen this argument repeated feels like a broken record, to the point where it's almost a running joke. One side brings up new stats, new highlights, new perspectives, and the other one crosses their arms, shakes their head, and says, but my guy never lost when it mattered. And no matter how much you agree with the substance of the argument, you have to acknowledge that it just doesn't go anywhere. It gets tiring. And it goes nowhere because nobody is willing to concede. I'm not taking sides here, but when I see the same argument over and over again, it doesn't make me want to change my mind. That's what an unproductive debate is. And it comes from people who are unable to get out of a win only mindset. They refuse to lose, so they just repeat. To be clear, I'm not saying that sports fans are stubborn or bad debaters. I'm a sports fan myself. It's just that these example of win-only mentalities that you see in sports fan culture that lead to poor debate are everywhere, not just in sports culture. And I'm using basketball as just an example. So to summarize my first 2 points, winning makes people closed-minded, and closed-mindedness stops debate from going anywhere. And to all of those who maybe don't follow sports, I challenge you to think of your example of when someone gets stubborn because they don't want to lose an argument. Maybe it's your friend who loves to hate on Taylor Swift's music, and then they refuse to even listen to any of it because why would they listen to sucky music? Maybe it's you arguing with your siblings, and you want to take something you said back, but then it would seem like you lost the argument and you just don't want to admit that. Maybe it's your teacher who makes a mistake and then spends way too much time doubling down on that mistake. In all these cases, everybody could just move forward if they were only willing to get out of their win only mindset. So if you ever feel that an argument, whether it's between you and your friends or delegates at the UN General Assembly, if you ever feel that it's spiraling and repeating itself over and over and over again because nobody's willing to concede an inch for fear of losing, you're witnessing the problem firsthand. My third point, I think, is the most important of the three. The people we argue against in most cases aren't our enemies, or they shouldn't be. Usually, they're people who share lots of common values and care about similar things. That's, in essence, why we argue, because we care. But the needless and incessant pursuit of winning a debate can lead us to believe that they are the enemy. So it's very common in the news nowadays to refer to the present times as divisive or divided. And it's true. If you look at a lot of American political trends, we seem to be agreeing less. And moreover, we seem to be disagreeing with anger. Now, people, of course, care a lot about political issues. So I'm not simply going to say that we need to stop trying to win our ideological and policy victories. That's what governing is, and that's the best part about a democracy. But I don't think it'll be controversial to say that the act of trying to score political points to win the game of politics has contributed to this divisive time. I want to give an example of something that I believe to be dangerous that has come from our need to win every argument, and it involves social media. Now, I use social media all the time. I've referenced it already in this speech. So believe me when I say that I'm not someone who's black and white going to say social media is bad. But the fact is, social media has profited off of that we love to win ideological battles at the detriment of seeing other perspectives. I'll go back to my sports example. I am a fan of the Golden State Warriors, a basketball team based in the Bay Area, my hometown. And when I scroll through my social media feed, it's filled with pro Warriors, basically propaganda, and I love it. So one day, the app decided to recommend a post that was not pro Warriors, but pro Boston Celtics, another team. I'm not in any way a Celtics fan, believe me, but I indulged it just to see what it was. And then over time, more and more Celtics posts appeared in my feed, and they're still there. And I hit a moment of realization where the app probably thinks I'm part Celtics fan now. To see, the app thinks that I enjoy seeing Celtics posts because they make me feel like a winner. Like many sports fans, I enjoy seeing posts about my favorite team that validate my ideas about the team, that validate my opinions, that validate my argument, that make me feel like I'm winning sports debates because I only ever see the positive perspective of the team. And when it was Warriors posts, I didn't notice it, but I noticed it happening for the Celtics because I was never going to change my mind and support the Celtics regardless of what my social media feed showed me. That's what social media does. Now, imagine instead that it wasn't pro Celtics posts, but potentially more impactful political or ideological posts, posts that have the potential to divide us. People like to win, so they might adopt the ideas that their social media feed shows them. We are divided in opinion, and a large part of that comes from social media making money off the fact that we like to see opinions we agree with. And that stems from our desire to win all our arguments. See, we're winning on social media because we never hear from our opponents. That's a direct consequence of thinking about broad conversation as a forum to win only and just not to listen. If there's anything I want you to leave this speech with, it's a mindset. As the saying goes, winning isn't everything. Yeah, it's okay to try to win an argument. Yeah, it's okay to pursue an agenda with a persistent determination to debate your side, so long as your need to win doesn't stop you from seeing the bigger picture and from listening. I've taken part in my fair share of debates and arguments, from the formal rooms of a Model UN conference to the academic environment of the classroom to the dinner table. I've witnessed arguments between internet people over NBA players, trivial arguments between friends, or in the hollowed halls of the US Senate. Debates so fundamental to our societal structure that it's kind of unbelievable, I think, that we're missing the point. Why do we debate? We debate to grow, to learn, to challenge, to agree, to build, to convince, to have fun. And yeah, to achieve this, we try to put our best arguments forward. But the end goal isn't to win. No, the pursuit of winning is a means to an end. And when we treat winning as the end, we become stubborn, debate becomes worse, and our opponents become our enemies. The next time you argue, try to think about something more important than the argument, something more important than winning. It might be something as innocent as just enjoying the moment or trying to preserve the relationship you have with your opponent. It might be to reach the best decision as a group. It might even make you realize that you might be able to step away from the argument and you'd be fine. The goal is to keep everything in perspective and avoid the pitfalls of pursuing an unnecessary victory. Maybe I don't need to win every argument I have. Maybe 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. Thank you.